Joy Reid has been fired from MSNBC. And Keith Olbermann thinks that race has something to do with it, even though she will be replaced with 2 Black hosts and a Latina host. So I don't think it's about racism.
MSNBC apparently cut ways with Joy Reid, and Ana Kasparian is analyzing the elements behind this choice. While some theorize about distinct causes, others argue it symbolizes more general changes in the editorial attitude of the network. MSNBC has been developing and bringing in people like Nicolle Wallace and Jen Psaki. Reid was among the few mainstream hosts who critically addressed Palestinian rights, raising attention to whether some points of view are being excluded. Is this a conventional business reorganization, or does it suggest a more deep change in media dynamics? Ana Kasparian concentrates on the specifics. Let's delve in.
Joy Reid was fired by MSNBC. There's lots of ways to phrase this, and I'm sure they will dress this up to some degree. This is contributing to the entirety of the racism enveloping this country, and it is part of a stampede to see which formerly liberal company can get to the head of the racism line, the approved racism line, as fast as possible. And Joy Reid getting removed from the primetime lineup of MSNBC is MSNBC's biggest contribution yet.
Reid has been fired from MSNBC. And Keith Olbermann thinks that race has something to do with it, even though she will be replaced with 2 Black hosts and a Latina host. So I don't think it's about racism.
Yeah, well, for some people who lose their minds like Keith Olbermann, everything's about racism.
Yeah.
So although there is one thing that Joy Reid did that was positive, that might have actually been the issue. We'll get to that in a sec.
Now, before we get to that, I should also note that Keith Olbermann is now pointing fingers at other MSNBC hosts and essentially demanding that they step down for Joy Reid's sake, and that includes Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell, and Hayes. Let's go to his post where he says, "Dear Maddow, if you go on the air tonight, or at a minimum go on without condemning the overt racism of the people who give you $5 million a year, you are complicit. Same for you, Lawrence O'Donnell and Chris Hayes. Protest or you are all Joe Scarborough." Now, of course, it goes without saying, Keith Olbermann used to be a host at MSNBC before he too was fired from his position. But let's get to the details here, because go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, real quick on one thing there. Nice lib on lib crime there, because unfortunately some version of liberal Democrats say racism about everything. And so Rachel Maddow normally does that, but Olbermann is flipping it on Rachel Maddow and saying you better say racism, even though it makes no sense in this context. Otherwise you don't deserve that salary or whatever. To be fair to Keith Olbermann, Rachel Maddow has that job purely because of Keith Olbermann. So as much as I dislike Keith Olbermann, I'm always fair, and he absolutely made sure that she got that job.
I hate all these people. Okay, let's just move.
MSNBC host Keith Olbermann has stated that Joy Reid's resignation is racially motivated. However, this argument is challenged by the network's choice of replacements: Simone Sanders Townsend, Alicia Menendez, and Michael Steele, 2 Black hosts and a Latina host. This action seems to be a part of a bigger corporate realignment, preferring established voices over independent or progressive ones, instead of racial bias. Olbermann's call on MSNBC hosts like Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell, and Chris Hayes to publicly criticize Reid's departure as racially motivated demonstrates how identity politics may occasionally be evoked even when the whole context exposes otherwise. Reid's leaving seems to follow MSNBC's overall drift toward a more establishment-friendly lineup rather than a race-based choice. Her departure coincides with the promotion of Jen Psaki, President Biden's former press secretary, to a primetime position, coupled with the continued success of Nicolle Wallace, a former Bush administration official. These programming selections suggest that MSNBC is prioritizing voices connected with political insiders over different, independent perspectives. Instead of stressing appealing to normal people, the network seems to be serving Beltway elites, possibly splitting an already small following of corporate Democrats between CNN and itself. Whether this choice boosts MSNBC's strength or limits its reach remains to be seen.
Who will Joy Reid be replaced with? Simone Townsend Sanders, former Bernie Sanders press secretary. She was also an advisor to both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Alicia Menendez, that's actually Bob Menendez's daughter, but Yeah, that's all I have about her. She also hosts a show on MSNBC. And then you have Michael Steele, former Republican and also former chair of the Republican National Committee. So all
uniparty.
Yes, so all three of them actually had been hosting a different show on MSNBC called The Weekend. The Weekend will now have three new hosts, and these three individuals will be host panel show in the hour where Joy Reid's show is currently airing. Her last episode will take place this week. Now, we have criticized Joy Reid plenty on this show for making statements like this.
And I think it's important to say that, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and know it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swifties. She had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in a short period of time. And I think that's still true.
So look, I gotta say her election analysis was awful. What she had to say in like spreading weird conspiracy theories after the first assassination attempt against Donald Trump. I thought that awful, but we are the fairest show. And there were some examples of her doing commentary that I thought was actually pretty courageous, considering the, monotonous mainstream media narrative that's always pro-Israel while hiding the suffering of the Palestinian people. Joy Reid did excellent commentary on that issue, and I want to give you an example.
You can't judge every Palestinian or every Muslim or every Arab based on what Hamas did any more than you could have judged every American by the fact that some Americans elected a religious extremist backed wannabe autocrat. Being for Palestinians' freedom and staying alive does not mean you love Hamas or support them. The Hamas attack killed an estimated 1,400 people, including children, according to Israeli authorities.
MSNBC has now gotten rid of pretty much every host that has dared to speak out in favor of protecting Palestinian civilian lives. The other person who just got fired, what's the name of that host?
Alex Wagner. And she didn't get fired. She is still a contributor, but she used to be at 9 o'clock in Rachel's spot Tuesday through Thursday, and they took her off.
That's not who I was referring to, though. Ayman
Mohyeldin. No, he wasn't fired. He actually got a little bit more time or better time slot, and so did Ali Velshi. So they did their, look, we don't know exactly why they made these moves, okay?
Are you talking about what happened today? Because
Yeah.
there was an update today. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so look, they take Joy Reid out. She's African American. They put in two African Americans and eliminated Tina. So they took out everyone in prime time who had said something positive about Palestinians. But on the weekend, gave those two Muslim American hosts a little bit extra time or better time slot. So they're covering their bases on all the identity politics stuff.
One of the most controversial aspects of Joy Reid's resignation is whether it was impacted by her openness to critically explore Palestinian rights. In recent months, MSNBC has made programming adjustments that have sidelined some hosts who have spoken out on this matter, leading to questions about whether corporate and political interests are distorting its editorial direction. Reid was one of the few notable hosts who openly questioned U.S. financial support for Israeli military operations and highlighted the humanitarian repercussions of airstrikes in Gaza. Her exit appears to fit with a broader pattern where progressive or independent voices that challenge official narratives are replaced by others more aligned with mainstream political ideals. That, however, while some believe that Reid's departure was politically motivated, it does not necessarily make her a consistent advocate of progressive principles. Her record includes controversial situations, such as her strong support for Hillary Clinton during the 2016 Democratic primary despite disregarding concerns about the Democratic Party's handling of Bernie Sanders' campaign. Additionally, past troubles and conspiracy-related remarks have made her a divisive figure, especially among progressives. While some have welcomed her departure, focusing only on her personal failures risks forgetting the broader picture. The more fundamental issue is the overall change at MSNBC, one that tends to prioritize establishment voices over different, alternative perspectives. Whether this trend continues or generates a shift in media dynamics.
So MSNBC and CNN are going to split up the establishment viewers all 12 of them, they all live in Washington. It's an awful strategy. And all they're trying to do is check off each box for the powerful. Oh, this lobby wants that. This party wants that. This part of the establishment wants this. Yes, but what do the viewers want? So I don't really care anymore because now television's nearly dead and these guys' ability to move Democratic voters is greatly diminished. They were a giant propaganda machine that cost progressives and populists in every primary. They will never give populists a fair shake at MSNBC. Press describing Joy Reid as a progressive is absurd. So no one was more pro-establishment than Joy Reid. But as much as I disagreed with Joy Reid, I'm also not in the camp of celebrating her tears, which some people are doing because she cried on a show about it. And it's very understandable. And it's a moment like this where you show dignity, grace, because what are you beating up on her for? She's not in power anymore. Doesn't have that show anymore. So when you criticize people in power, it's for a purpose. But now that she's not there anymore, let it go, guys. So no need to beat up on her at all anymore. And then, of course, lastly, Trump is threatening to shut down MSNBC and wants them to pay him a bribe or whatever the hell he thinks he's doing with demanding money from media organizations that criticize him. So of all the people that are wrong here, Trump found a way to be even more wrong than all the rest of them. So this is not going to help MSNBC, and they're going to be just as anti-progressive, anti-populist as they have always been, even more so. And they'll take this train all the way off that cliff because they have no ability to recover. They don't know anyone who's in the red population, any real voters. They're an insular little bubble of establishment folks who are patting themselves on the back. But this thing's almost over already. It's just rearranging chairs on the tight.
Beyond MSNBC's internal decisions, the bigger issue is the inexorable demise of cable news as a key force in American politics. The network's slant toward establishment views is unlikely to reverse its waning impact, especially as younger people increasingly flock to alternative media and internet platforms for political debate. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's recent criticism of MSNBC, including his indication that he could take action against the network, adds another degree of complexity. While such statements raise worries about press freedom, they do not change the reality that MSNBC encounters challenges in preserving its relevance. As the network navigates these shifts, its decision-makers appear fixated on strengthening business and political relationships rather than responding to the new media landscape. If this tendency continues, MSNBC's influence on both the Democratic Party and the broader media sector may continue to decrease. What are your perspectives on today's discussion? Share your perspective in the comments. Thanks for watching.